Starting with the first example, we have s of y equals 5y over y plus 7, and we want to find the domain of the function. So the only issue with this function is having the denominator equal to 0. So if we set y plus 7 equal to 0, we get y is equal to negative 7. So the domain should be everything except negative 7. We can represent it like this. So it's everything going to be to the left of negative 7 and everything to the right of negative 7. Okay, so we're just going to skip over negative 7, which is why we put an open parentheses. The next problem, we're still going to set the denominator equal to 0. And so factoring out an x, we get x minus 8. We're going to set both factors equal to 0. So you get x equals 0, x minus 8 equals 0. So the only two numbers that are going to work is 0 and 8. We'll draw a number line. So keep in mind, we don't want to include 0 and 8. So it's everything in between 0 and 8 and outside of 0 and 8. So whenever we write the interval notation, we always want to start at the leftmost. So we're coming in from the left here, negative infinity. We're going to stop at 0. And 0 we don't want to include, so we're going to put an open parentheses. And then union. Now we're going to go between 0 and 8. Again, we don't want to include those. And then finally, we're going from 8 to infinity. Last one. This one's a bit tricky. There's two things we have to consider. One thing is the denominator, and the other thing is a square root. We know that the square root, the domain, is whenever the inside is greater than or equal to 0. And we know for the denominator, it cannot equal 0. So you want to combine these two things, right? So you want the bottom to be bigger than or equal to 0. This is from the square root. And the denominator says, I don't want it to be 0. So if we combine this thing, we'll see that we end up getting everything to the right of 0. So it'll be something like that. That is for if it was just 1 over square root of x. Okay. But for us, we have 1 over square root of x minus 9. So what we're going to do is set this equal to 0 and get that x equals 9. So that's going to be the point on here. If x is less than 9, we'll be taking a square root of a negative, and that can't happen. If x equals 9, we'll be dividing by 0. That can also not happen. So it's going to be everything greater than 9. So the domain, well, we'll start from 9, because that's the leftmost point, and go all the way up to infinity. Now the other thing, so in order to simplify this further, what we could have done, okay, is ignore the top, because the top's fine, and just set inside the square root, just set that greater than 0. And so we get x is greater than 9, which is 9 to infinity. So this is a nice shortcut.